It happened inside our own house, the one my family moved into on Halloween night. We had just moved to Mississauga, Ontario, to an area called Winston Churchill. The house was bigger than anything we'd lived in before, 2 stories, a basement, a long hallway upstairs, lots of doors and corners. I remember being excited at first. New room, new neighborhood, new start. It was late when we finished bringing boxes in. Somewhere around 11. Trick-or-treaters were long gone. Our porch light was off. My parents, my 4 sisters, my brother and I were all tired, dusty, and not really in the mood for anything except getting to bed. My mom called us back down to do some quick chores before we slept, stacking boxes in the right rooms, flattening empty cardboard, that kind of thing. It felt like it took forever. By the time I was done, I was exhausted and just wanted to lie down. I went back up to my new bedroom. It was still mostly empty except for my bed and a couple of boxes. The walls were bare. The window looked out over the street, where only a few distant streetlights broke the darkness. The first thing I noticed when I stepped inside was how cold it was. It was October, sure, and Canada gets cold, but this was different. The air in my room felt like it had been left in a freezer. I could actually see my breath when I exhaled. I grabbed a sweater from one of the boxes and put it on before climbing into bed. I lay there listening to the muffled sounds of my family still moving around downstairs. My parents and older siblings were in the basement doing something with more boxes. I could hear faint thumps and voices through the floor. Then I heard footsteps in the upstairs hallway. They were light, quick, passing right in front of my door. I figured it was my brother or one of my sisters heading to the bathroom or checking their room. I waited for them to say something, knock on my door, call my name. Nothing. After a minute, I got annoyed more than anything. I was trying to sleep. I got up, opened my door, and stepped into the hallway. There was no one there. The lights were off, the only glow coming from the nightlight plugged into an outlet at the end of the hall. All the other bedroom doors were closed. The air out there was normal temperature. It was just my room that felt like a walk-in freezer. I went downstairs to the basement where my family still was. They were all together, surrounded by boxes, arguing over where the couch should go. Nobody had been upstairs. Nobody had gone to the bathroom. Nobody had walked past my room. I told them I'd heard footsteps. My dad shrugged and said old houses make noises. It's just the wood settling, or the furnace, or something. That was his answer to everything. I went back to my room, still chilled to the bone, and got back in bed. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when something woke me up. At first I couldn't tell what it was. It was one of those moments where you're half dreaming, half awake, with your heart already beating too fast even before you're fully conscious. I lay there, eyes closed, trying to figure out what felt wrong. Then I heard it. A dull, heavy banging somewhere nearby. It sounded like it was coming from the wall my room shared with my parents' bedroom. I thought maybe they were moving furniture, but it was too rhythmic for that. Thud, thud, thud. Not fast, just persistent. Like someone was hitting the wall with their fist every few seconds. I checked the clock on the little table next to my bed. It was 12:30 a.m. I could still hear faint noises from the basement, boxes shifting, voices talking low. My parents were nowhere near their bedroom. They weren't upstairs at all. The banging didn't stop. It was getting louder. I sat up in bed, my pulse pounding in my ears now. "Hello? I tried, my voice coming out quieter than I meant it to. Mom? Dad? No answer. Just another boom against the wall. I got out of bed on shaking legs and walked to my door. The handle was cold under my fingers. I opened it slowly and stepped into the hallway again. The banging died instantly. The hallway was empty, same dim nightlight at the end, same closed doors. My parents' door was shut. There was no light coming from under it. It didn't look like anyone had been in there at all. I stared at the door for a second, trying to convince myself to go and open it, but something in me refused. Instead, I told myself I was just overtired and went back to my room. I shut the door and locked it, even though that felt a little silly. I climbed back into bed, pulling the blanket up to my chin. The cold in the room felt even deeper now, like it was seeping up from the floor. For a little while, there was silence. Then, slowly, my bedroom door creaked. Not all the way open, just a tiny bit, just enough for the latch to click and the door to move inward an inch, as if someone had pushed it softly with their fingertip. I stared at it, frozen, my heart slamming so hard I could feel it in my throat. I had just locked that door. I knew I had. I could still feel the twist of the lock in my hand. "Who's there?" I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. Soft footsteps moved across the floor, coming closer to my bed. Very light, almost too light for an adult. I thought maybe it was one of my younger sisters. Relief washed over me for half a second, until I realized something that made the hair on my arms stand up. I hadn't heard the door open all the way. There had been no hinges creaking, no wood scraping the floor. Just that tiny initial creak. And then footsteps inside. I turned onto my side, facing the inside of the room, and that's when I saw it. A figure standing next to my bed. It was tall, so much taller than any adult I knew. Its head seemed to almost brush the ceiling, 7 feet at least. It was just a dark outline at first, solid black against the slightly lighter darkness of the room. No glowing eyes, no mouth, no familiar features. Just a shape. Wrong, stretched, too thin in some places, too broad in others. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I felt like my voice had been ripped out of my throat. I couldn't move either. It was like my body had disconnected from my brain. All I could do was stare. The figure leaned slightly closer, just enough for me to see that there was something like a head turned in my direction. It didn't feel like it had a face, but I could feel it looking at me. Then it spoke. Not out loud, not with a sound. Just a single word inside my head, like a thought that wasn't mine. Boo! That was it, just that one mocking, childish word echoing in my skull. The connection broke, and suddenly my voice came back all at once. I screamed at the top of my lungs, the kind of scream that tears at your throat. I yanked the blanket over my head like it could protect me from something that tall. The door flew open and the light clicked on. My parents rushed into the room, along with my brother and sisters. I threw the blanket down and sat up, pointing at the spot next to the bed. There was nothing there. The room looked completely normal. No 7-foot figure, no shadow, no sign that anyone had been there other than me. The only thing unusual was how cold the air felt. Cold enough that my mom actually shivered and rubbed her arms. I babbled everything at them, the banging on the wall, the door unlocking by itself, the footsteps, the figure, the voice. My parents exchanged a look over my head that I didn't understand at the time but recognize now as worry mixed with that kind of, maybe he's just overtired, doubt. My dad went to check the hallway and their bedroom. No one there. No signs of anything unusual. My mom asked if they'd heard any banging on their door or wall. They both said no. To them, it had been a normal, quiet night downstairs until I screamed. They stayed with me until I calmed down, then suggested I try to get some sleep. I begged them not to leave, and my mom finally agreed to let me sleep in their room for the rest of the night. The next morning, I went back to my room and checked every inch of it. The closet, under the bed, behind the boxes. That's when I noticed something small, but it made my stomach drop. On the inside of my bedroom door, right near where the lock was, there were faint scratch marks. Not like from moving furniture or anything. Thin, vertical, crooked scratches in the wood, like fingernails that had dragged down the surface slowly. Over and over. I never got an explanation for what happened that night. My parents still say I was just stressed from the move and my brain turned house noises into something else. Maybe that's true. But to this day, I can't sleep in a room with the door cracked open, even a little. It's either all the way open with the light on or shut and locked. No in between. Because sometimes, in that tiny sliver of space between open and closed, I still imagine a 7-foot-tall shadow standing there, waiting for me to notice it. And if I ever hear a voice in my head say boo again, I don't think I'll survive it.